Hey. I really fell in love with the idea to do a video today on vulnerability. It's been a big presence in my life lately, and I think it's something that we kind of misunderstood and taken to be something else and is feared. So I asked for some questions, and I'd like to speak to those as it comes up right now. Like, in total transparency, I just take what people ask, I put them on a piece of paper on the computer, and I answer it as it comes up. Like, I don't have a plan, I don't know what I'm going to say, I don't know what's going to come out, I don't know how it's going to be taken. It's just, on this one I just follow what comes. And I don't know the answers, I'm just speaking from this place. And I am by no means an expert on anything. If anything, I know nothing. So this is just a sharing coming from me to you, and as it unfolds, I open to. So the first one about vulnerability was how to stand in the face of pain and remain open, unblinking, letting it come, remaining totally open. Well, it depends on what the definition of pain is, but for me, pain is always like a calling me to open. It's just, that's what it is. And the more I open, the pain becomes something else. And when I close down, it's like the pain, like it gets sticky and it sticks. And the unblinking part, there's nothing wrong with blinking, like going, and still remaining open, like letting that blink, letting that shyness or that resistance or whatever it is, letting that be there, letting it be a part of that, is kind of what helps the openness stay around. Instead of, let yourself be shocked, let yourself blink, let yourself take a little bit of a step back, but just remain there, like, let that be a part of it. My experience with vulnerability is not that it's unflinching. At least not mine. It flinches a lot. And it's just being with the flinch and continuing anyway to stand in what's honest for you. And what's honest for you doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be honest for someone else or that that's someone else's experience. Vulnerability is simply telling your truth as you live it, and not really having the expectation that anyone else understands it. That's kind of an interesting one. And the next one is to show vulnerability, like to share it and talk about it, or to curl up and soothe yourself, or both. Well, for me, I think the first step of living as vulnerability is really that part of curling up and soothing myself. That comes first. That comes like where I'm really taking a moment to step into it and feel it for myself until I know beyond any doubt at all that yes, this is the truth for me right now. So I think that that's just a process of vulnerability, is being with yourself, and then from that place you know whether or not it's important for you to share it, right? Because you've really checked in with where you're at. Then it gets shared or it doesn't, but it becomes very clear if it's going to be shared or not. How do you keep being vulnerable? Because it feels like the right thing to do in relationships where it's not being valued, i.e., how do you avoid closing yourself up again? This kind of brings me to a place where I'd like to talk about what vulnerability isn't. Vulnerability isn't about being understood. It's not about manipulating. It's not about hiding. It's not about getting somebody to do what you want them to do. It's not about being recognized. It's not about having to prove anything. It's not about being something that you think you need to be. I'm only vulnerable for myself because that's what feels right to me. Because when I step out of the vulnerability, it feels like it doesn't feel natural anymore. Even though when vulnerability really first started coming, it scared the living bejesus out of me. It was like I would go to tell somebody my truth and what I was feeling, and I would, like, my heart would be beating so fast and my throat would be dry and I'd be like sweating buckets and I'd be totally scared out of my mind. And yet I would continue to go forward. And when I was first getting used to really speaking my truth and being vulnerable, I would tell people, look, I have something I want to talk about, I have something I want to say, and I'm really scared. And I'm just going to start, and if I have to back up, then I'll back up. I'm just really afraid right now, and I have something I want to share with you. And never, ever did I have somebody react badly. And if they reacted in a way that like I expected, like they reacted in a way that they were shocked by my vulnerability, or they were disgusted with it, or they didn't agree with it, or whatever, it just wasn't taken that way. Because I could just be, yes, I understand that upsets you, and I can see how you can see it that way, and this is my truth. And I could just be there with them, like totally intimately, because I was being with myself. So vulnerability it requires a courage, but not like the kind of courage like, I'm going to go beat this thing, or I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do this, or it's like this really quiet courage. It's like the kind of courage you talk about, like be afraid and do it anyway. Vulnerability comes with that that kind of courage. Just, okay, I don't care how I'm seen. I'm not worried about how this is perceived. I just know that I have to be this. I have to tell this truth. Pretty much no matter what. And what's really cool is, like, after I was scared and sweating and swallowing, and then I would share what I had shared, or I would say what I had said, and the afterthought was like, oh, I'm still alive! I'm alive! I was myself completely, and I'm still here. I didn't die. It didn't kill me. And that's sweet in and of itself. And the last part is vulnerable with control. That is knowing your own centeredness first. Being aware of an expected response may indicate an expectation. It's absolutely true. My vulnerability, or how I experience vulnerability, there is no control for me. It's just do this or not. So last Friday I posted a video in which I'm crying, and that's big. Anybody who knew me like even 3 years ago, it's like, I don't cry in public. I'm like the rock of everybody's life. I'm not the one that does that. It was very vulnerable.